Thank you so much, Doc, for having us. It is always a pleasure to speak to you. Right now, as a country, we are in a period whereby we are mourning the loss of one of the greatest statesmen in Kenya that we had.
Yeah.
And this is a person that you were privileged to interact with and you know, at a personal level.
Yeah.
And many people don't know that you actually had the privilege of patient-doctor relationship with this person. So maybe first of all, we can let Kenyans know who you are.
Yeah. Dr. Dan Gikonyo. I'm a cardiologist at the current hospital where we are now doing this interview. We have been here for the last 15 years. Before then, I worked in various places. I trained in the University of Nairobi, which I'm proud of, after which I did my cardiology training in the United States, both in the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis, and also in the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minneapolis. So I've known, well, let's first of all say to the nation that we are all mourning. We're in a sad mood for having lost a great statesman, and not for Kenya, but for Africa and for the world. Because I take him to be one of the greatest leaders in the world. A man who, he never actually put himself in that platform. He never said how great he was. But we always knew how great he was. In fact, sometimes I think he's, you know, he never really told people to elect him president. Because he always thought that people should elect the person they think is best at it, of which he knew he was best at it, and assumed that people would understand that he is the best. Not all people understood, but eventually anyway, we elected him president. And as you say, I must use your word, I was privileged to be part of his team, to be part of his medical team, because we were many. There were many other members who were not in the limelight. We had Dr. Mwinzi, Dr. Olunya Aluoch, and other doctors in the team that took care of him, but we were privileged. I keep joking to people that this is a man I would have paid to treat him. I used to tell him, Mr. President, if you allow me today, I can come and see you, and after I've seen you, you give me an invoice, I'll pay. He was such a character. To me, I think I must say, Ada, he was not a patient to me. First, because we met long before I became his physician in different circumstances.
All right, maybe we can start with where you met. How did you meet the late President Mwai Kibaki?
As you know, first of all, he comes from Othaya. And Othaya borders Teto, where I come from, because Teto and Othaya are just adjacent to each other. I come from Teto. In fact, we come from the same village as Wangari Maathai. The same, we just, my home and Wangari Maathai are just a fence. She's just across the fence. So we come from the same village, and we are across from Othaya. But of course, as we grew up as young people in the 50s and 60s, we had people we admired as young people, you know, people who are, names were known, like Dr. Gikonyo, whom I always thought was a medical doctor until I learned that he was a PhD doctor, and I wanted to grow up to be like him. Then there were people like Mwai Kibaki and other people. So we admired those names even before we came to know them. Actually, my first personal interaction with Mwai Kibaki was in 1978. And I keep repeating this story because it's both very close to my heart and also touching to other people, and also telling how it shaped me to be a good doctor and even learn to help other people. We had just had our third child. I was 28, and we were born with our son was born with a very difficult facial deformity, and that type of plastic surgery, facial surgery, was not available easily in the world those days in the 70s, leave alone in this country. So my professor told me that we need to take this kid to some place like London to have one world-renowned facial plastic surgeon called Eric Gustafsson. And here I'm 28, my wife is young, we have a young family, and he's telling us to go to London for treatment, and The budget, of course, is very high and unachievable. So I told him, well, we'll try. Then a friend of mine who was called Honorable Mwangi Maathai, at that time he was MP for Lang'ata, told me, listen, we can go and see Mwai Kibaki. He can help us get to London. And that's the first time I met Mwai Kibaki.
What role was he playing in the country at that time?
That time he was the Minister for Finance.
Okay.
Yeah. 1978. No, he had just become vice president. He just become vice president, yes, because that was soon after Kenyatta had died. Because this was now in September, October 1978. So he had just become vice president. And I mean, a man who does things without any expectations, that's what your problem is. Leave it to me. And in one day, he called his friends, raised enough money, I had a ticket, and I took my kid to UK for treatment. And then thereafter, we kept close, but not very. He was not a man to ride on what he had done for you. In fact, what he didn't like is you reminding him that, you know, you helped me here, you know, he didn't like that. Mwai Kibaki had no yesterday. What he did that day was done and it's finished. Move on to tomorrow. Tell me about tomorrow. Don't tell me what we did yesterday. So the next time I met him at close quarters was again at a funeral of a very close friend of ours, the late the town clerk, Mr. Gikonyo, who they were very, very close. He also came from Uthaya. And we went to the church service because I was taking care of Mr. Gikonyo. And I could see a man really touched by the death of his friend. But my relationship as a physician was, excuse me, was more by, I don't know whether it's plan or, I had a friend of mine called Gikonyo, who was even closer to me than Mwai Kibaki. And Gikonyo used to come for his medical checkups here and there, and we became very good friends. I used to go to his house. His daughter was also a medical doctor. Gikonyo was in my wedding. So one time in 1991, he comes with a man to the clinic. And I look at the man, it's Mwai Kibaki. And he tells me, because I used to take care of his blood pressure, he said, "Minata hii mutu pima pressure." So, and then we became friends from that time. And when he formed the Democratic Party in 92, I joined the party because him and Karume were my good friends. They told me, "You must join our party now as a life member," which I paid. The only party ever joined in the whole country. Never joined any other party.
How much did you pay?
I had 100,000, but that time was a lot of money. But because of my relation with the two gentlemen, and I admired them, I decided. And in my mind, I said, we must make sure that this man becomes president. And from that time, I became his secret campaigner everywhere. You know, and I would go to Muthaiga Country Club, and I would tell guys, you know, this guy is going to be our next president. They would laugh. No. So I joined the party, and me and other people, Kaito Murungi and Alfred Gitonga, Norman Nyaga, Cyrus Ita, of course Karume, George Muhoho. We used to have a small group, used to meet quietly in Muthaiga. I was a convener. Quietly, I was still a doctor, but so in 97, when we when we lost the election, I remember we were sitting, just the two of us, at Muthaiga, and he was very unhappy because he knew he had won that election in 97. So as we discussed, I said, you know, we must have a strong party for the next one. He said, no, don't worry about party, we just campaign. But we got together in 97 with, as I say, Kaito Morongi, George Muhoho, Alfred Gitonga, and other people, and decided we were going to strengthen the Democratic Party. And we got an office, we got officers. I used to pay the officers working in the DP office from my office. But of course, we couldn't do that openly because we were all scared of Moi. But we became very good friends, not just a doctor-patient relationship, but he was more like a father, an older brother to me. And from 92 all through became very good friends. In 2000, we decided we are going to try. By this time, we have formed an office on Gwynthwathek Road. We have. I remember I paid for for the fence and the signpost, and we put a flag post with the DP colors, and I would meet him at the club. We would have a quick drink. We would sit together. He used to sit alone most of the time, and I would join him. People would say, "This guy will never become president." So in 2000, we decided with Raito that why don't we just arrange for our candidate, our DP chairman, to go out there for us to market him in the US, in the UK. And Kibaki says, no, these are gimmicks. You're a man. If the people want to elect you as president, they will. So eventually we convinced him that we go to the US. We paid our tickets, and I remember that trip very well, between me and Kiraito. And we went to Washington, D.C. That time, unknown to many people, I had my official now recognition as the advisor to the Democratic Party chairman on international affairs. I had a card. So here we landed in Washington.
That must have been a big title.
Oh, yes. And we met people. We went to Capitol Hill. We met the Black Caucus. We met senators, Democratic Alliance. I remember one time we went to the Black Caucus group, and I introduced, the arrangement was I would introduce the chairman, then Kiraito would speak, and then the chairman would speak. So I introduced the chairman and said, "Gentlemen, this is our next president in Kenya." And people laughed. And this is now 2000. When they laughed, one of the congressmen spoke after that and said, "Remember, this is a gentleman who can be president, because in the last election, he had close to 2 million votes with somebody else counting." I remember that, with somebody else counting. After that, we went through, we came to London, we went to Parliament, we met the East African Business Association. They told us we had no chances of ever getting through. They gave us different names. Eventually, we worked through people, and they were joined by Wamalwa and Charity Gilu, and eventually by the Rainbow Coalition, and the rest is history. And then we knew we were going to win. All this time we are still checking blood pressure here, there, the usual doctor relationship, but more underneath there are other relationships.
So this issue of blood pressure seems started way back.
I'm using the word blood pressure as a way of saying checkup.
Okay, but you had often interaction, apart from the blood pressure. I mean, the checkups will be often during that period.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, he was a very particular man when it came to medical checkups. He would never miss a checkup, never miss an appointment. He was always very compliant with whatever we would agree on. And of course, that's how he lived to be 91. Yeah. Until that accident. And that accident was really, really devastating to us and all his followers and his supporters, because I remember that day when he went to tour Kitui and environs, to campaign there. In fact, we were supposed to go to join that tour. I had a friend of mine also who had interviewed him when we were in Washington in 2000, called Chaka Sally. And Chaka had come all the way from the US, and he wanted to interview our candidate. And I told him, let's go join the tour to Machakos. We can interview him on tour. Then he said, no, it's not a very good one. Let's arrange, when he comes back in the evening, we have a formal interview. So Chaka Sally was here with all his team and whatever. And as we were waiting for him to come and give the interview in the evening, I get a call from one of his aides, Mr. Derito. Listen, we're in Machakos, we have had an accident. Of course, that really shook us. How bad do you see? Not too bad, he said, but when he arrived in the hospital, that not too bad was not correct. yeah, because he had fractures, and the whole nation was mourning. Anyway, there we are in Nairobi Hospital, and with our candidate injured. And I must thank Raila Odinga because he stepped in straight away. Of course, with a famous statement, the captain is injured, but the team must go on.
The captain has been injured in the field. He's temporarily indisposed, but the rest of the team shall continue with the play.
And so the rest, we traveled to London, and what I noticed, something I didn't know about him, is his stoicness. You know, somebody who can bear trauma and bear pain without flinching or without feeling self-pity. He was brave all through those injuries, and we were more worried than he was. And of course, then we traveled to London, difficult circumstances. Again, I must say, Raila Odinga really assisted us that time because he was now the leader of that movement at that time. And we left him here, we went to London, stayed there for 3 weeks.
So maybe we can go back to this accident.
Yeah.
When this accident occurred, was his leg only fractured, or apart from that, there were other internal injuries?
No, he had multiple injuries. He had fractured his leg, two areas. He had fractured his arm. He had injured his neck. You remember he had a neck brace. He had fractured ribs. It was a really, really bad accident. And we were lucky that we came out of it. Yeah.
Okay. And can we say that from this accident, then that is when trouble started in terms of his health becoming an issue?
To a large extent. But what the accident did, which I think I must tell people, is that he was slowed down. So even after he came back from London, remember when he came back, he was still in a brace. He had a plaster. He had a plaster in the arm. So he was still not at his best. But the speech that he gave during his the time that he was pronounced president, when he was sworn in at Uhuru Park, was a very strong speech. It outlined what he was going to do. As you remember, he said he has inherited a country that has been ravaged by corruption and many things and misrule. The economy was negative growth. Kids were not in school. There were no roads. And I remember two statements that he made. One is that corruption will no longer be the business of the day. Number two, he said that government must exist to serve the people, not the people to serve the government. And those two things he really achieved with an A+, because corruption died. I remember those days, people would even arrest policemen. If you ask for a bribe on the street, people would arrest you. And
Okay.
although that didn't last long.
Okay.
Why? Because he was too indisposed. He was the president, but he could not move around with all this. And that's the time agro-leasing happened. And I keep repeating this, and I must say this in public. When people associate Kibaki with agro-leasing, it's very unfair, because he was not fully in charge those days. He was unwell, he was just recovering, and he did not advocate, or it may be, I'm not sure that he even knew about that agro-leasing that we keep blaming him all about. That could have been by his other people, but for him, he was a man of integrity, and he would never, ever involve himself in a corrupt deal. That I'm quite sure about.
But people would say, I mean, he was in charge, so definitely he has to know what
Which
was
is good,
happening.
which is good. But you can be in charge and not know. Even in your kitchen, the maid can do things you don't know. Yes, and what you do. Yeah. You are in charge of your kitchen, but the kid starts doing things, and the maid starts doing things, doesn't inform you. Sometimes you may not know what's going on. Not because you're not capable, but because the person doing it is very smart. Yes, he can hide it from you. So I think it's wrong for us ever to associate Mr. Kibaki with any corrupt deal. Fairly speaking, and talking about fair judgment, it's unfair to judge him on that.
Right. moving forward, now after 2003, he had other episodes where he had to visit, the hospital because maybe at some point in 2016 he had an abdominal issue and he had to go back to Nairobi Hospital. And apart from that, I mean, he has had several visits.
Yeah.
Have you been part and parcel of these visits to the hospital? Have you been in charge fully to take care of him?
Those details of his illness have no value to society. These are private things, they're individual, there's confidentiality, so we cannot discuss, in fairness, discuss those openly, because those are individual things. I would rather, if you allow me, talk about the man and the nation and what he did. But when we discuss health, I can discuss health in general and say, people, please go for annual medical checkups, don't smoke cigarettes, keep walking, keep your weight down, don't take too much alcohol. Coming about alcohol,
he loves he loves certain type.
No, let's not say loves, let's say loved, because it's past tense.
Yes.
Because I can tell you for certain that the moment we drove up from Uhuru Park, after he was sworn in, and we entered State House, the president never, ever drank any alcohol, any form of alcohol. In fact, State House was cleaned of any form of alcohol. Even in celebrations, there was no alcohol. He made sure there was no alcohol in State House. But only so, he campaigned against abuse of alcohol. In place he went, he would tell people, hii mnakunywa ovyo ovyo, hiyo ni bule, msifanye hivyo. Yeah, he became a campaigner against abuse of alcohol. Yeah.
Apart from that, maybe what type of foods did he like in order to stay fit, to stay healthy, and also be able to continue with drugs, medication?
You know, the good thing about President Kibaki is, as I say, like what I advise many people, be compliant with doctor's advice. Because quite often he would we would just walk in State House and he would say, let's go for a walk. And we walk around. The State House Gardens, it's a large area, by the way. You can walk for a whole hour in that area. There's a lot of walking space. And he would do that diligently. And he would walk, even after when he's recovered from his leg injury, he would still exercise. The president exercised on a daily basis, which some of us don't. You know, people just saw him sitting in State House and you think he's just sitting on a chair now. He would exercise in the morning, sometimes on a treadmill, and physiotherapy, and in the evening he would go for a walk. And of course, eat healthy. And that's how people live to be 90, because it's all, bad health to a large extent is predictable, and it's also preventable. I can tell you that if you smoke cigarettes, you don't exercise, you eat ovyo, you become overweight, something is going to happen to you. And if you get blood pressure or diabetes and you don't take care of, you don't obey doctor's orders, something will happen. Those things are predictable and therefore preventable. So once you know what the issues are and you control them, you'll be well.
Are there particular foods he loved?
Oh, he loved fruits. He's a man who loved fruits very much so. And of course, being traditional, most of us still have our traditional foods, which is what I'm sure he must have grown up on when he was young. All those Kikuyu traditions of Mokimo and the rest. And it's healthy. You know, what has damaged our country, not our country, the world, is that we have taken up traditions of very bad feeding habits. This issue of refined flour, unga, in bread and in ugali and in cakes, this issue of a lot of mafuta, hard oils, for frying things. This is what, and the use of too much refined sugar, juices, sodas. This is what's ruining us. We have changed our diet so badly, so quickly, that we have not adapted to that. And adaptation is what keeps nature going. If we change your environment so drastically for you now, diet and exercise, you will not survive. I can give you an example.
Yeah.
You go buy a cow in Isiolo and bring that cow to Rimuru. It will not survive. The grass is good, the weather is good, but it's used to a different lifestyle altogether.
Yeah.
That rapid change, I know a friend of mine who bought a camel, took it to Alliance High School, it died.
Okay.
Yeah.
In your interactions and home visits, maybe as a doctor,
Yeah.
I'm sure you met the late Mama Lucy Kibaki.
Yes.
How would you describe her?
Madam Lucy Kibaki, one, was never my client, and it's true. And was never a presidential candidate, was never a president, so I didn't have a mandate. You know, my service for Mwai Kibaki was not just a choice of a doctor relationship. It's a government job. It's a government that you are, it's like just like when you are civil servant, you are the chief in Isiolo. This was a government job. You are given a job, you are to this, and you are given job description.
Yeah.
And that's what you are. You're given your pay. Of course, the amount of hours you spend on that job does not go to the pay because you would make more money. I would have made more money in the clinic. But I can tell you, as I said before, I would have served Mwai Kibaki even if I was to pay for it, because I believed in him. All the time I knew he could do something for this country. Or rather, not knew, I believed that he could, and I was never disappointed. Remember, in the first year when he became president, 1 million kids went back to school. In the first year, 1 million kids went back to school with this free education. And as you know, it was well known all over the world. Bill Clinton talked about it. He was amazed about this African leader who has all of a sudden opened schools and brought kids to school. Because that's one thing he was very passionate about, education. Kids must go to school. And kids went to school. And many other issues that he did for us.
Yeah. You've mentioned Madam Lucy, the late Madam Lucy was not your patient.
Yes.
But I'm sure, I mean, even as you walked along the corridors, maybe you saw her somewhere and, just waved, "Hi, Madam Lucy." How was she? How was the interaction between the late Mama Lucy and the late Mwai Kibaki, and also with their children, from your own observation, that is?
I had actually very little contact with the family as a family. But as you remember, initially, after we came back from London, before he was sworn in, he was not a president, so we lived in Muthaiga. And Mrs. Kibaki actually opened that house for us. We did what we wanted. She gave us the freedom to walk around and to do other things for the president. And as for her, what I saw, the little I saw of her, she had only one interest. The president must be protected. And her job was to protect that man who was the president and was her husband, which is what every woman does. Yes.
And she fiercely protected
Absolutely.
that man.
Yes, yeah, you have your territory. As long as you don't go in people's territory, you have no issues. But if you cross people's territory, people must protect their territory.
Absolutely.
Yeah? So then, and some of us protect it with a lot of passion. And that's what wives are all about. they protect their territories.
And did Mwai Kibaki protect his territory as well?
You know, when Mwai Kibaki became president, he became president of the nation. And I remember when we went to Uthaya, in one of his last meetings of the people, when he was voting, he told the people, "Remember, I am going to be the president of the whole country, so don't expect me to be coming here." And by the way, you know, even when we went there, I was amazed. Here we are in Uthaya. Kibaki would never speak in Kikuyu. Never. Even to the people there in Uthaya. Kiswahili and a bit of English. Because he felt that whatever he said when he spoke was not for people in Uthaya. It was being listened to by everybody. So at no time did he address people in Kikuyu. So for him, he was a president of the country, and his family was part of the country. So at no time would he favor his family for the country. He would not employ his relatives for the. I remember one time actually a very touching episode, because I was with him and his brother, Mr. Derito, and we were trying to find out whether his brother's son can find a job. And he said openly, listen, I know this is my nephew, but I have so many other young people in the country even with better qualifications than him. And I must consider them for jobs before I get to him. That was him. The nation and the country was ahead of family. He would not say, give you a job but just because you are his relative. No, not him. He was a man of merit. And I remember when he made his first cabinet, and maybe there were, as people say, MOUs, you must get this man in the cabinet. He gave people in that first cabinet positions on merit. I mean, people like Rafael Tuju in information, people like Raira in roads, Anyang Nyong in planning. He just looked at your qualifications, and whether you are, which party you came from didn't matter, as long as you qualified. Even if you came from the right party and you are not qualified, he wouldn't take you. No. All he wanted was results. And he got people with results.
In your eyes, do you think the media has portrayed Mwai Kibaki, the late, as the man that you knew?
The media have been very kind to him, except on those two occasions. Whenever they mention his name in agro-reason, it's unfair. It's not true. He's not part of it. It may have happened in his reign, but he was not in the complete know of the whole issue. Had he known, I can tell you, he would have stopped it. And as you know, when the inquiry started, he let go some of his very close ministers, very close, some of his best friends. When he started realizing that they may have had something to do with that, he let them go. Very few people do that. Many people will protect their friends even when they are wrong. But when it came to issues of corruption, if you are involved, Kibaki will not touch it. So that one, I think the media has not been kind on him. The media has not been kind on him when they say that he was part of the civil strife of 2007. He wasn't. Well, did he win an election? Well, the IEBC said so. They may have been wrong. The Krieger team came and said they don't know who won. So you can never say he lost. There's no data that he lost. However, if there was a stalemate, like happens in boxing, if I'm the world champion for boxing, and we fight with you or somebody else, and there's a stalemate, I retain the crown. It's, I mean, a draw means that the incumbent stays. The issue of 2007 was not whether the election was rigged or not. It was the people's reaction to that. I don't see why people had to destroy a country just because of who is the president. That is wrong. It doesn't matter how, well, to me, of course, this is not necessarily shared by everybody. But in my view, the people's reaction to whatever they thought was wrong is what was wrong. I mean, there are many ways of solving election issues than going killing people who didn't even take part in that election. But that's a personal view, which can be debated. Those two issues where we blame Kibaki on are wrong. Because even if you blame him for the election violence, in all these areas where there was violence, there were police officers. There were people to keep order. There were provincial commissioners. Why couldn't they keep order and blame it on the president? I don't know. Again, that's a debatable issue.
Yeah, that's
as you know, I'm passionate. I keep telling people.
I can see it in your eyes. I mean, this is your friend you're talking about.
I keep telling people, as opposed to in Julius Caesar, I remember, Mark Antony came and said, we have come here to bury Caesar, not to praise him. But me, I'm different. Me, I've come here to praise Kibaki, not to bury him. Because he deserves it. Yeah.
So in your eyes, who is Kibaki? The image that we don't get to see, that Kenyans didn't see, in your eyes, who was Kibaki?
Kibaki was a man who believed that the best people should be elected into positions of leadership. Best people, which doesn't happen today. We don't always elect the best people on points or on issues of leadership. These days, people join parliament or other places, Senate and MCAs, to make money. It's a money-making machine, which has changed. Most of you are born after the 60s. The initial politicians that brought freedom to this country were not paid. The Mau Maus who died in the forest didn't have any commission. Nobody paid them. They went there on their own. They looked for their own food. They left their families. They were not paid. The people who came after that, the members of parliament in 1960s, Kina Waruru Kanja and other people, when they came, there were no big salaries in parliament. And I think what has destroyed this country is big salaries and big allowances in parliament. Those should be scrapped. Let people who want to go to parliament go there because they want to serve, not because they want to get paid. Because as long as there's a lot of money there to be earned, all unscrupulous people who are not honest, all types of people go there.
But we're the people who elect these people.
But you know, we are the people who elect those people, but most of us are like them, unfortunately. Yes.
So does that mean we deserve the leaders that we get?
Because you know what, let me tell you a story. Many years ago, there was a man who has been arrested wrongly, and these people said he was a bad man, and he was taken to court. And there's another man who had been arrested because he was a mobster. He used to kill people and all those sort of things. Then the king was asked to be the judge of those two people. This fellow who has been arrested without any offense, and this fellow who everybody knows is a thief. And the king had the right to decide who of these two people should be jailed. Is it the thief or this fellow who is innocent? Instead of him making that decision, he asked the mob, whom do you want me to free? And the mob, who like mobsters and who like thieves, shouted, we want Barabbas. And poor Jesus was killed. Now, even today, democracy is not always correct. The voice of the people can be wrong. And that's why we have to have leaders who can go against the mob and tell them, listen, you guys, you're wrong. Let's go this way. But as you say, the voters may vote for somebody. That means they're right. The best judgment, it will never happen, but the best judgment to have good parliamentarians is to say, there's no salary there. Who wants to go there to lead the people? Then you get people who are genuinely people-driven, who want to help the people, they'll go there. You get priests, you get people like Ada, you get other guys who will go there to help people.
Okay.
But as long as it's a big salary, we all flock there. And we even bribe people to get there because we know we'll get more when we get there. So leadership has become biashara, which is wrong. It's no longer leadership from the heart. When people like Mwai Kibaki went to parliament, remember this is a man who had a job in Makerere as a lecturer, well-paid job, comfortable. He left that after persuasion by Raila Odinga's father, Jaramogi, to come and help the party in Kenya, KANU that time, to win an election. But because he was clever and he was an organizer, they put him in the Secretary General area. And he came and helped KANU to win. That time, if you read the history, he was never paid. Government gave him a small Volkswagen that used to run around with, campaigning. Yes. These are the people I believe are leaders. People would go there even if there's no pay. But today, most of us are going there because there's a car, there's an allowance, there's a big house, there's what, which is, again, that's why we are getting the wrong leaders.
All right. And in your eyes, do you think Kenyans and the media have we have been fair in portraying the image of the late Mama Lucy Kibaki? Have we, or we've given an image that is not her from your little interaction?
No, Lucy Kibaki was a family person. Her interest in the world was nothing more but her family. So we should not judge her nationally. She's not the president. She has no interest in the people. I mean, that's also her job was her children and her husband. And for that, she safeguarded that space very well. And that's what people should do. Safeguard your space. Yeah. Of course, there are many ways of doing it. People are different. That she did it in her own way, the best way she knew how. But that's her. That's her family. But that has nothing to do with Mwai Kibaki, except to say that even that he was able to ride over. But one thing about Mwai Kibaki was his love for people. He was a very gentle man. He would never hurt anybody. He would never use unkind words. He never wanted somebody in trouble. Even after he became president, despite all the previous government had done, he never went on a revenge mission looking for what he was there. He said, hapa wale wako na vitu vyao wameiba waende wakakule nyumbani tuendelee na kazi. For him it was not yesterday. It is tomorrow. And that's what leadership is all about. Jomo Kenyatta, when he took over in 1963, had a difficult job of healing the Mau Mau crisis and opening a new Kenya. And if you read his statement, his speech of June, Madaraka Day, 1963, there's something that he said that we should always try to remember. He said, in my short life, there's something I've learned, that there is nothing to be gained by dwelling in the past. It is the future that's alive. The past is dead. We must focus on tomorrow. And that's what Kibaki did. Kibaki always focused on tomorrow. If you want to, if you want him to stop your conversation, to tell him about jana. Tunachukua jana mzee tulikuwa hapana na kesho. Yeah, this is because the tomorrow is what matters.
Absolutely.
Tomorrow is forever. There's a song. Yesterday is all gone, but tomorrow is forever. That's what should focus. Let us think about tomorrow. Let us think about our children. And if there's anything that we should emulate Kibaki about, please let us add corruption. Let us add corruption. Because all the problems we have in this country are corruption. When Kibaki came and brought down corruption, even Harambes were corruption, he removed them. We were able to collect enough taxes, and we were able to run our domestic budget on our own taxes. We didn't have to borrow for domestic usage. Because the reason that sometimes we have to borrow for domestic usage is because either we don't collect enough from taxes because we are corrupt in the collection. We don't collect from you because you are a supporter. We let you keep the loot. And even when we collect, we don't use it properly. Here in Karen Hospital, we pay taxes. But sometimes I think, if I was allowed to keep that tax that I pay, I would use it better than the government does with it. Because I pay taxes, then these MCAs and whoever take it to go to Dubai, to go here, to go there, to buy a new car, which is useless. Yeah. If you gave me that tax money that I was paying, I would expand this hospital, I would employ more people, I would create employment, I would use that tax better sometimes than the government uses it. So if we had a way of making sure that the taxes we pay are properly utilized, this country will grow. But we pay taxes to guys who just go on joyrides. Yes.
Okay. There's this point in 2020 when we saw Mwai Kibaki for the first time after a long time, when he was paying his last respects to the late second president, Moi, and he was wearing certain type of shoes. Maybe would you know which type of shoes were this? And because they seemed like they were medical for some sort.
No, you know, let's give the old man a fair deal. This man is 91. So even if you have no medical issues and you are 90, your body will start failing. Yes, you are lucky if you get that level with a healthy body. But even without disease, 90 is not young. So all of us will go someday, whether we are sick or not. The most important thing about Kibaki that we should give respect for is that despite major injuries in a car accident in the year 2002, for 10 years, he was able to guide this country from a stretcher with a fractured leg, with a brace of the neck. Despite all these major physical handicaps, this man was able to guide this country from negative growth to positive growth. And would have gone further had we citizens not been unkind to him. We are all saying how nice he is. Yeah? It's irony. If he was that nice, how come we could not re-elect him easily for his second term? I know why. Because at those times, we don't just deal with results. We are dealing with personal aggrandizement. I want to get that position, and get that whether he's good or not, we don't want him, let me get there myself. It's all personal ambition and personal greed that led us to the 207 problems. And we would have grown better had we just toned down our greed and our desire for power and let him continue for another 5 years. Would have, but if had we gone on the same trend from 7% in 2007, when he left 2012, would have been to 15. But we slowed him down. Then we blame him for it, and we are the ones who slowed him down. You know, if you're playing a football game and the referee makes a mistake, yeah, he gives you a penalty which will not, you judge may not have been fair. What do? You destroy the stadium, you bring down the chairs, you break the gates. Seriously. If you do that, it tells me you have no idea how much it costs to build a stadium. You can say the referee made a mistake, it's okay, we can play the game tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's what people, you know, Mwai Kibaki was a leader of the opposition before he became president. At no time did Mwai Kibaki miss a single national event because he was showing some disagreement with the government. Even when he was not given a good seat in the stadium, Kibaki would still go for Jamhuri Day, Madaraka Day. If nobody recognized him as the leader of the opposition, he would still go there. He respected the nation and national days, and he led opposition in opposing issues in government in a way that was gentlemanly and civil, not through violence. And that is the hallmark. In fact, he did just as well as an opposition leader as he did as a president.
Finally, as we lay, as we pay our final respects to the third president of Kenya, I'm sure there are things you will miss about him.
Yeah.
What are these things?
Oh, I miss his humor. He was a very humorous person. In all areas, he saw humor. He never took anything at heart. Even if you try to hurt him, you don't take it at heart. I used to watch television, and people would say all sorts of things on television. You look at them and say, and turn to me and tell me, wanafikiri nitawajibu. Then you do his head like that. And that would end there. He's a man who took those people the way they were. He never judged them badly because, you know, we are all made different. Not all people are good. But to tolerate bad people is something he taught me. And I'll miss that humor because for him there was nothing big. No. Even after he lost in the banana and orange constitutional debate, he said the government doesn't lose. We may have lost, but the government is still government. So I'll lose that type of humor, very humane person, man who never would hurt anybody. He would never say bad things, not a gossiper. He would not talk about other people. He talked about issues that were useful for society. I'll miss a mentor. I'll miss a friend. I'll miss a man I really admired.
In terms of patient-doctor relationship?
You know, it's interesting that you're asking that. You can be my patient and we have a relationship. I didn't have a patient-doctor relationship with Mwai Kibaki. No. Even when we discuss issues of health, it's like we are discussing at the same level. Because I had met him long before he became a patient. We had a relationship before that. We had a relationship before he became president. So even after I became president and he had the accident, I had to see him regularly. I almost saw him almost on a daily basis for 10 years. We still had a relationship above doctors. We would go and we would talk about other things. We would talk about the Makerere days, about trips to Europe. And I would accompany him even before he was president. We'd go abroad and talk to people. In fact, I remember one time he went to the House of Commons in London with him. And we entered, we were received and we were given seats. And we took part, we listened to a debate. He made me see the world I would never have seen. By him being my friend and being his physician, I was able to see the world I would never have seen. I was able to go to White House and have dinner with the president. I was able to go to Downing Town, number 10 in London, the People's Hall in China, all places. I've slept in the palace in Addis Ababa. You know, by virtue of being his friend and his physician, I saw the world that I would never have seen, but I also saw world leaders. And I learned something, that despite what you see about all these world leaders, you are awed by them, you think they're next to God. Bottom line, I came to learn, they're just average, normal human beings. And this awe that people think about these people, I found is not there. It taught me something about humility. That these people you think are so big, they're just normal human beings. And so whom am I to start acting big and just as simple, like a doctor in Karen? So it has taught me just to be normal. And that's what it taught me. That despite going that very high, like in, if you remember in the Rudyard Kipling's poem on If, and he says, if you can walk with kings and not lose the common touch. If you can walk with kings but not lose the common touch, because some of us walk with kings and we think that the rest are nothing. But if you can walk with the king and not lose the common touch, yours will be the earth, and much more. You'll be a man, my son.
I think that's a perfect way to end this conversation. Maybe any final word you would want to say?
Just to wish Kenyans well this time of mourning, the family of Mwai Kibaki, his friends, the world at large, because there are many people who are mourning for him, and hope that out of all this, there will arise among your age groups and among others a Kibaki who can lead this country to greatness.
Indeed, he was a great friend, and I'm sure you will miss him a lot.
I'll miss him a lot, yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Doc, for speaking to us. It has been a pleasure to look back at the life of the late third president of Kenya, Mwai Kibaki, who was not only your friend, but a patient and also one of your teammates in political mentors. Yes. Thank you so much, Daktari. And indeed, we have been speaking to Dr. Dan Gikonyo, who was a physician to the late Mwai Kibaki. And he had the privilege of interacting with him at a personal level and also accompanying him in most of his engagements. And he has mentioned a number of events, a number of occurrences, and a number of lessons that he has learned throughout the life of the late Mwai Kibaki. My name is Saada Hassan, and it has been a pleasure.